Okay, so welcome. Today we're going to talk about Diablo 3 and the basic mechanics, or the more important mechanics, three core concepts of the game, and what makes it interesting, fun, and just the progression and how that kind of goes and what makes people want to keep playing it. So we'll start off with the combat, since it ties into a lot of the other concepts, as well as they will make more sense once combat's explained. Uh, In Diablo 3, you have 6 active abilities on your skill bar and 4 passive abilities, which spells and abilities you choose will depend on what you want to do with the character. And you'll start off with only 3 active slots available and 1 passive, and you'll unlock them as you go. 2 of the 3 active skills are mouse skills, and 1 can be bound to any of the other keyboard shortcuts. The starter 3 are made up of a primary, a defensive, and an action bar skill. Primary and defensive are your left click and right click. Action bar skill is just, like I said, anywhere else. Along with this, not all the abilities are obviously, not all are obviously unlocked at level 1. They're unlocked on the way to the level cap, which is 70. You can go a little past 70, but I won't be covering that in this video. But each ability has up to 5 runes that can dramatically change the ability, which are also unlocked as you go. So let's say, for example, as soon as you hit level 61, when you unlock Black Hole, you don't immediately get all 5 runes. You have to get those over the course of the next 9 levels. So from there, I'll talk about the different types of skills and how their mechanics can be used to help the player progress and just kind of mess around with how the game works. So there are active skills, passive skills, and some that are kind of a mix of both, and you'll see what I mean when I go over them. So, for example, Explosive Blast is an active skill. So, when activated, an explosion radiates once before going on a cooldown, as you'll see here in the video. Ice Armor, when activated, gives a 10-minute long buff, and it reduces the damage taken from all melee sources by 12% for the duration. And lastly, as a mix, there is Slow Time, which is kind of an active, but it's also a passive, because when you activate it, you place down a bubble, like the Slow Time bubble, at the location of which your cursor was when you press the button, and it slows all enemies within the area of the bubble, and it can also be given other benefits and other attributes with runes, like I will mention later. So even more specific than just that there's really 2 classifications of spells. So you have signature spells, which are your 4 main abilities, which are generally going to be on your left click, so your primary button. And they are free to cast, and not only that, they can be used to generate mana, but generally they're your primary spell. They don't do that much damage, but they're more utility. But alongside those is just literally everything else. So everything other than the signature spell is just basically a mana spender. They have multiple different classifications, but that's the basic. These signature spells, however, also have runes that can be quite useful. Spectral Blade, for example, is a signature spell, and since it is free to cast, with the Barrier Blade rune, gives a nice buff to durability. So basically what this rune does, every hit that you make, or every attack done with the spell, and that rune equipped, gives you a shield of 4% of your max health, just I think for 4 or 5 seconds. Once monsters start dealing more damage, this can be very helpful in keeping you alive. Like, as you start pushing higher and monsters are a lot harder to take down when they do a lot more damage, 4% every time you hit can be the difference between you living and you dying. So as you level up more, you're given more options about what you can do. So as you level up, you obviously unlock more abilities and more runes, so you can use different sets, like different combinations of abilities together that will complement each other, or you can use them just to kind of work together more than anything else. But a good example is at level 61, when you unlock Black Hole, like I mentioned earlier, it can make a good combo with a lot of different spells, but a good example is Disintegrate. So Black Hole will pull enemies nearby within a 15-yard radius to a central location, setting up a nice perfect group for Disintegrate, since Disintegrate is a straight line that just hits everything in that line. And if you have multiple enemies grouped up into a small area, being able to just hit all of them at once is great. It makes it a lot more efficient to use that. And then by adding runes to the Black Hole, you can make the area larger to synergize with that, add Convergence to Disintegrate, which also gives Disintegrate a larger hitbox, causing them to both have a larger area of effect, making them a lot more effective for how much mana you're spending. Next in combat is how runes affect your skills, which I've touched on a little bit, but now we'll go a little more in depth. So runes can either change the elemental damage, for example, changing an ability from doing fire damage to cold damage. They can increase the damage, or they can just flat out change how the ability acts from, say, a projectile to something that floats around you, which we'll show later. A good skill to show this is Arcane Orb, as you'll see in a moment what I was just about to say. The base skill without runes is just an orb that shoots forward and deals damage during the travel and on impact, as shown here. Each rune will change the spell in a unique way. However, you can only have one rune active per ability, otherwise it would be a little ridiculous, especially considering some would conflict with each other. So for example, Obliteration simply just speeds up the missile speed of the orb and increases the damage quite significantly from 435% of your damage to 700%, as you'll see here. Spark changed it into more of a lobbed ability, along with changing the damage type to lightning. And lastly, Arcane Orbit changed it into having four small orbs orbit you, and you can see that here. I'll leave that orb on, that rune on actually, because it'll tie into the set later, which you'll see, and you'll see what I'm meaning. So next, the second thing we'll talk about is legendary gear. So this gear, as you can see on screen, will give you bonuses in virtually every way possible. They can give you bonuses ranging from base stats to armor, like your typical RPG, or giving passives which can greatly aid in combat. So these stats range from like main damage stat, in this case int, or vitality, or in this case health, critical damage, critical chance, area damage, elemental damage, skill damage, pretty much everything. Rare passive that are only on legendaries, which is the main focus here, is things that will boost, say, specific skills, or specific skills under certain circumstances, that kind of stuff. So a good example of this, which is also on screen, is the Wizard Offhand Orb of Infinite Depth. So the legendary passive here gives you gives you 4 to 5% damage bonus and a 15% damage reduction. Like if you take 15% less damage per stack, and you gain a stack every time your explosive blast hits an enemy, stacking up to 4 times, effectively giving you 16 to 20% bonus damage just across all abilities, and up to 60% damage reduction across just a period. Is 20% less, which is great, and so it stacks well with the Arcane Orb ability. The other item on screen, which you can show, that is the one in the middle, is a good example of a weapon that has multiple different things. So this one has area damage and arcane damage, along with some percentage damage and main stats. So you can see how this ties into having Arcane Orb on your skill bar, because it gives you a flat percent damage boost to that skill specifically. So these items can be quite strong and are very rare due to the power they bring with them. Further past plain legendaries are set items, which you can see shown on the left side of the screen. So when these are combined together, they give even more powerful bonuses. For example, you can see the 2, 4, and 6 set bonuses here, and which will kind of explain why the Arcane Orbit and Arcane Orb skill is quite good, along with having slow time on your bar. So as you can see here, the set in this demonstration is Delsier's Magnum Opus set, and you can see the main part. You can see all the set items here and why it's so strong. Is its damage bonus while inside a slow time. So having slow time and having Arcane Orb on your hotbar are good, because they work together with this set quite well, since having slow time down and being inside of that area gives your Arcane Orb a 2000% damage boost, and having Arcane Orbit means that they will always be orbiting around you, so they're always going to be inside that bubble, so they will always be getting that 2000% boost. Because if you have without the orbit, they will be shooting off out of the area, and they won't get that damage boost, but if they're inside around you, they will, and effectively giving a huge boost to your damage, and also can be given runes. So like, for example, slow time can be given runes to decrease the damage you take, which is also just a side benefit. So as you can see, these items are very, very powerful. So what we'll move on to next is the last thing I want to talk about is legendary gems. So So legendary gems can aid players in multitude of ways. So they can either amplify your damage, they can amplify your healing, defense, and a couple other things like movement speed, attack speed, that kind of thing. There's pretty much a gem for everything. So any type of stat you want to boost, there's probably a legendary gem for it. I think there's about 25 of them. But for example, to kind of tie into the skills we were talking about before, two gems that work really well with that set that I was mentioning earlier is the Bane of the Trapped and the Bane of the Stricken. So to start off with, Bane of the Trapped, these are both on screen by the way, so you can take a look at them as I'm talking about them. Bane of the Trapped increases the damage against any slowed target, so anything inside of your slow time, which is where all of your fighting is going to be happening. They all take a bonus 15% damage plus 0.3% per level on the gem. So it starts off at level 0, giving you the 15% bonus, and then every level increase after that gives you plus 0.3%. So as you can see here, it's level 25, I believe, and it gives you 22.5% bonus damage. So anything slowed takes a bonus 22.5% on top of all the other bonuses you've already accumulated through other gear, set pieces, skills, all that kind of stuff. So there's also one which is also on screen on your other side, which is called the Bane of the Stricken. So this is good for area of effect damage heavy builds for example in this case the Delsier's Magnum Opus, because all of the damage that you do is area of effect. So it's not that good at taking down single target such as the bosses or Rift Guardians, which I'll mention briefly in a moment. So having a gem like this, so every hit that you deal increases the damage that monster takes from you, is immensely powerful and really, really helps with taking down those bosses when you have a class that's not good at that. Because in this case, so basically the base damage, your damage is increased to that monster by 0.8% every time you hit it. So let's say you hit it 10 times, it's now taking 8% more damage, which is quite nice actually, and it stacks up infinitely. There's no cap per se, and so every time you level up the gem, it starts off at 0.8 and gives you a 0.01% damage boost every time you level it. So for example, at level 25 it gives you 1.05% damage bonus every time you hit, which is great. As well as these gems they get stronger as you level them, but they also unlock special bonuses when they're level 25. As you can see, these are both level 25, so they're both unlocked. Bane of the Trapped at level 25 has a 15-foot aura that slows all enemies within a 15-foot radius. So basically, it essentially procs itself. So that area of effect slow that it has permanently procs its own damage bonus. So anything within that area is slowed by the gem and is also taking increased damage from the gem. And then Bane of the Stricken basically just increases your damage for the same reason, increases your damage against bosses, which is the whole point of this gem. It's to help take down those high health targets. So having a flat 25% damage increase to monsters that have the most health gives you a nice boost in how fast you can kill them, which makes it a lot easier to push and kill them. So all these different mechanics together form an interesting gameplay by giving you something to tinker with, by creating different combinations of skills, spells that you can play with, that you can make entertaining and fun for you as a person and how you enjoy playing the game, as well as by giving you rewards for playing more, such as legendary gems, set items, legendary items, that kind of stuff. So all these different set items, there's all kinds of different legendary items that have tons of different effects that can vary from, for example, Serpent Sparker, which allows you to have more. So there's a skill called I forget what it's called, Hydra. So it spawns a Hydra which will do damage to anything nearby, and you can normally only spawn one, but by having a Serpent Sparker equipped, you can now have two, effectively doubling the damage output, because that's your main damage skill, is having a Hydra out. So and then in this case the Scepter, which I brought up on screen earlier, causes all arcane orb hits to double, so they proc twice, effectively doubling the damage of that skill, which again just gives you a huge damage boost. So these are quite rare to get. Obviously, there's your legendary items, which are just basic. They don't have any really special skills or any passive skills, but these ones do, and they're a lot harder to come by. So by having those in the game with a lower drop rate, when people play more, they're more likely to get them, incentivizing them to play more and actually try and get them. And then on top of that, by getting these rare items, you get stronger and can help push up the leaderboards to try and hit number one if anyone actually has that type of dedication, which not many do. But anyways, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.